Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Manns, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Show. This is the October 24th, 2022 edition of the show, and it's week 425 since the closing of the North Adams Regional Hospital. The April 4th Coalition's mission statement is, we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights, and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. As an organization, we support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is the custom, we put the emphasis on Article 23 at the start of the show.
And so
Want 1 and 2 again, Dick,
yes,
or you want to switch it up?
I'll do 1 and 2 again.
Okay.
Number 1, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. Number 2, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration or compensation, ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. Number 4, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of her or his interests. Last week, we ended the show talking about the candidates running in the state.
Yes, and we passed on what the AFL-CIO, their
recommended.
endorsement. They endorsed Healy and Driscoll for governor, and Andrea Campbell for attorney general, and Diana DiZaglio for state auditor, Bill Gavin for secretary of state, and Deb Goldberg for the treasurer.
Yep.
And then they also sent out, the AFL-CIO has taken 2 stands on question 1. They say to vote yes. It says it only impacts those people who make $20,000 per week. It'll raise $2 million annually that is constitutionally dedicated to roads, bridges, and schools. Will invest in good union jobs with family-sustaining wages and benefits. It will shrink classroom size and upgrade school facilities, a win-win for working people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts without workers paying a penny more. And then they also said to vote yes on 4. It's something that you won't find in your red book, but they said vote yes on 4. It'll make our roads safer, and it will make our roads safer for all drivers and riders and workers who build and maintain our infrastructure. And so the question 4 was passed by the House and Senate of Massachusetts, and the governor tried to veto it, but it was overridden by his veto, and then they slipped it in after this book was
presented. Question after this came out.
Yeah.
To try and take advantage of various anti-sentiments
Right.
in certain populations.
And I read the Berkshire Eagle too, and they endorsed all the questions. The vote, they said vote yes on all the questions.
On all 4. So.
But to vote early, you can do it now, starting on the 22nd, going through November 4th. And then if you want to apply to vote by mail, you have until November 1st. And then Election Day is November 8th. So
Yep.
get out there and vote. And with all this discussion and all those political campaign ads we see, very disturbing ones, I have to just change the channel because they talk, they're really vicious and really downgrading. They're not
Everything,
uplifting at all.
They're not
And
trying to persuade, they're just trying to
Right.
scare.
I was disgusted by that, and then I listened to the Ralph Nader radio hour this weekend, and he had a guest, Sheldon Whitehouse, and he was talking about dark money. So I thought I'd do some research, and I ended up coming up with a few videos that we're going to show tonight. The first one is from 2 years ago. It's by the Washington Post, and it's about almost 5 minutes, and it gives an explanation of what dark money is.
Correct.
On one side of political donations, large quantities of money are publicly reported and easily tracked, but the other side is undisclosed and unlimited. This influential campaign money is commonly referred to as dark money, and so far, hundreds of millions of dollars of this type of money have been spent on our elections. We generally avoid using the phrase dark money, but we'll use it here because it's a popular term to describe the campaign money that's nearly impossible to track. First off, you might ask, how is it legal for unlimited and undisclosed amounts of money to float through our political system? And how did dark money even become a thing in the first place? It starts with a Supreme Court case and the tax code. But don't worry, we won't get too into the details, so stick with us a little bit. In 2010, when the Supreme Court ruled on its Citizens United case, labor unions and corporations, including nonprofits incorporated under the Section 501c4 of the US tax code, suddenly became able to spend unlimited sums of money on politics. Needless to say, it wasn't long before we saw a bunch of groups seek this 501c4 tax status, which is a designation reserved for social welfare nonprofits. Registering under that tax code basically meant that these groups became classified as working for the well-being of society, and some of that work can involve politics. Politics can't be the group's primary purpose, but there's no real way to quantify primary purpose, so this restriction is really hard to enforce. Unlike other groups, nonprofits generally don't have to reveal their donors, even if they're involved in electoral politics. So for donors who are looking to influence elections but don't want to reveal their identity for whatever reason, this is an attractive option. While these groups can't coordinate directly with the candidate, their large sums of money have potential to seriously influence an election. Another option for donors who wish to stay anonymous is limited liability corporations, or LLCs, which have very few reporting requirements in some states. In my reporting, I often come across these entities with cryptic names and few clues about who's created them, who's funded them, and what they're spending their money on. LLCs can make unlimited donations to super PACs to influence elections. And even though super PACs have to reveal their donors, we can't learn much from a donor named HFNWA LLC or BV2 LLC. The most well-known example of the power of undisclosed money is a network built by conservative billionaires Charles and David Koch. Over many years, the Koch brothers built a labyrinth of politically active nonprofits and LLCs, most of which went toward voter mobilization and into ads attacking former President Barack Obama and congressional Democrats, notably during the 2012 elections. In 2012, the 17 groups that made up the Koch network raised at least $407 million, while masking the sources of those donations. That money is equivalent to about 4 times the amount that Bernie Sanders raised in all of 2019 for his presidential campaign, which brought in more than 1 million donors. There are plenty of undisclosed sources of money on the left, too. One of them is Democracy Alliance, which is a network of wealthy donors. This election cycle, Democracy Alliance plans to direct $200 million to Democratic groups. They don't really talk about this publicly, but we know this because we reviewed internal documents. Labor unions and left-leaning advocacy groups are powerful sources of campaign money on the left because they have millions of members and supporters all across the country who pay dues or who donate to them, and these groups don't have to disclose their donors. In the past, we've seen both parties take advantage of dark money groups, and these groups are already active in the 2020 elections at all levels: local, state, presidential, congressional, Senate, and we'll most likely see them proliferate even more because the Internal Revenue Service has loosened regulations on these groups in recent years. Politically active nonprofits are increasingly becoming popular among wealthy donors from both parties because they want to keep their privacy and avoid getting attacked by critics who try to target them politically. Hopefully, this brings dark money groups into light for you. If you have any other questions about campaign money and the 2020 elections, just tweet me and I'll answer them in the next video.
All right, thank
The
you.
only thing I want to disagree with her on is that unions, yes, but members cannot donate from their dues. They have to personally donate.
Right, they have to set up a separate PAC.
Separate PAC to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, at
So
least public employees. I don't know about private.
I don't know about private
Yeah.
either, but I do know public employees have to, so I,
And also, I just want to thank, and remember that was 4 years old,
Ago,
4
yes.
years ago. And one thing, when we were going over the endorsements of AFL-CIO, I want to just mention that they also endorsed Richard Neal for Congress and Paul Mark for State Senate and John Barrett for State Representative.
Yep.
And so that was an informative video, so you got an idea of what dark money is. There's a lot of other information out there, but just last month, a bill was introduced called the Disclosure Act, and President Biden made a statement on it 2 months ago. So we're going to show that video. It's a very short video.
Folks, sorry to keep you waiting. I apologize. At its best, our democracy serves all people equally, no matter wealth or privilege. But here's the deal. There's much too much money that flows in the shadows to influence our elections. It's called dark money. It's hidden. Right now, advocacy groups can run ads on issues, attacking or supporting a candidate right until Election Day without disclosing who's paying for that ad. Too often, powerful special interests use front groups to run these ads to win at any cost. Even foreign entities that aren't allowed to contribute to political campaigns use dark money loopholes to try to influence our elections. This week, the Senate's going to vote on the Disclosure Act. House Democrats already approved this act, and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island helped write this bill as well. Here's some of the things it would do. Advocacy groups that run ads to influence elections would have to disclose any contribution above $10,000 that they receive. And foreign entities would be banned from making any contributions for these ads, period. Republicans should join Democrats to pass the Disclosure Act and get it on my desk right away. Dark money has become so common in our politics. I believe sunlight is the best disinfectant. Ultimately, this comes down to public trust. Dark money erodes public trust. We need to protect public trust, and I'm determined to do that.
Yeah, I
Yep.
wholeheartedly agree with that. And then we have another video with Senator Sheldon Whitehouse introducing the bill to the Senate. And it's about 9 minutes long, but it's very informative.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that business out of the way, I wanted to come to the floor and kick off the process that will culminate tomorrow with our vote on the Disclose Act. The Disclose Act will get rid of dark money in our politics. President Biden gave a good speech about it yesterday to help stir interest and progress in this area. And there are problems with dark money in and of itself. It contributes to what has been called the tsunami of slime in our politics, because when the slimy ad has a fake, phony front group's name on it and no actual real entity or company or association is accountable for that, well, then you can lie to your heart's content, you can smear to your heart's content, and there's no accountability. So there are reasons for getting dark money out of our elections on their own. Just giving disproportionate power to special interests, sliming up our elections, allowing a lot of bad actors powers that they don't deserve, and putting enormous power in the hands of people who are politically active enough to be willing to spend that kind of money and have a motive in legislative outcomes to spend that kind of money that regular citizens can't begin to match. But there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more to it than that, because like corruption, dark money is used to achieve other goals. And those other goals have had very important policy effects in our country. Climate change we are dealing with daily now in floods, in fires, in droughts, in species moving about, particularly in Rhode Island, our ocean fisheries moving about. The oceans are acidifying. We are putting essential operating systems of our planet in danger and onto a course that mankind has never seen before in the entire history of humankind. And when I got here in 2007, this was addressed as a bipartisan problem. There were 3 different bipartisan Senate bills, all of which were very consequential, would have made a huge difference. Senator McCain ran for president carrying the Republican Party banner with a significant and serious climate platform. And it looked like democracy was responding to this problem in a responsible way. All of that activity came to an instant shuddering halt in January of 2010. What happened in January of 2010? What happened in January of 2010 was that the United States Supreme Court let loose one of the worst decisions it has ever rendered, the Citizens United decision. And that decision allowed unlimited money to flow into politics. And of course, if you can spend unlimited money in politics, you suddenly have an unprecedented motive to hide it. If the most you can give is $3,500 or $5,000 from your PAC, it's not worth putting a lot of effort into hiding that. Plus, nobody really cares. But if you can give $35 million, plus, let's say you're a polluting fossil fuel company, you don't want people to know that, now it's worth putting quite a lot of money into the apparatus of hiding who you are. It's an expensive apparatus. It's a real apparatus. Senators have gone to the floor before to describe it. We've used this graphic. This is the web of climate denial that has been chronicled by scientists who study as a phenomenon climate denial and how the money flies around through these different groups and how they use it to hide what they're doing on climate. Well, once that got launched, that was the end of bipartisanship on climate. We lost a decade. And I think history will show that the lost decade from January 2010 till now is one that these pages and children across the country will pay a very steep price for. Why would they be willing to do it? Well, the fossil fuel industry has an annual subsidy of $660 billion, basically from being allowed to pollute for free. $660 billion. If you are protecting a $660 billion subsidy, how much would you be willing to spend any given year to protect it? If you spent $6.6 billion a year, you'd still be earning 100 times your investment. And sure enough, we've seen dark money explode into expenditures by the billion. And as that happened, climate progress ended. Look at voter suppression. Across the country, there was a wave of Republican state legislatures passing voter suppression laws. Was it an amazing coincidence that they all happened to do that at the same time? Evidently not, because there's actually a tape from Heritage Action, one of the dark money groups behind those voter suppression campaigns, where the person briefing the big donors admitted this. We're working with these state legislators, she said. In some cases, we actually draft the bills for them. Or we have a sentinel on our behalf give them the model legislation so it has that grassroots, you know, from the bottom up type of vibe. The whole thing was a dark money fake fed into these state legislatures by dark money, and no small amount. This is a $24 million investment, the speaker said. We started right after the November election. We've driven hundreds of thousands of calls, emails, placed letters to the editor, hosted events, and run television and digital ads. So, voter suppression is an artifact of dark money. And last, court capture. I've got a series of speeches that I've given so far, 18 of them. When I do, I put my scheme poster up because this was a scheme, indeed a scheme and a half. At this point, what we know is that at least $580 million was spent on phony front groups using dark money out to capture the court. We don't know how much additionally went into political coffers to reward people for their court-packing enterprise or to threaten to punish people if they didn't go along with the court-packing enterprise, but it was quite a show. This is just one little node of that $580 million court capture enterprise, and it shows two groups, which is the current sort of best practices, worst practices, better to say, in political influence. You have a 501c3 and a 501c4 side by side, same location, same staff, indistinguishable in any real sense. And then in this case, they pushed what they called fictitious names so that their phony front groups had phony front groups that had names like Judicial Education Project and Honest Elections Project Action. But here's one that was somewhat significant, Judicial Crisis Network, because Judicial Crisis Network took $15 million checks, $17 million checks, and turned that money to TV ads to stop the confirmation of Justice Garland and to push through the confirmation of Justices Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett. So dark money flows into all these other areas. If you like climate denial, you love dark money. If you like voters having their votes suppressed by partisan legislators, you love dark money. And if you like a captured court that dances to the tune of the dark money donors who stocked it, you love dark money. And that's before we even get to its pernicious, insidious, clandestine effect in our elections.
Yep,
Quite a speech.
it was.
And it's, you
And
know-
I'm sure he kept going.
Yeah. So I think that vote took place also shortly
did.
after that. And there's another video, it's really short. It's 49 seconds long, and we're going to show that, and then we'll talk some more.
Far left, dark money.
Radical left, dark money.
Dark money groups?
Dark money, you may be onto something.
Dark money.
Dark money groups.
Democrats dominate dark money.
Mr. McConnell, no. Mrs. Blackburn, no. Mr. Cornyn, no. Mr. Graham, no. Mr. Tillis, no. Grassley, no. Mr. Cruz, no.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm sure they did. After all, they only object to one pot of dark money. They
Right.
don't object to all
And
the
there's
pots
no
of dark
comparison.
money.
There's no comparison
Not
to the
even
amount of
close.
money. I mean, there was one donation made, I think it was like $1.4 billion to the Heritage. Not that,
Foundation?
I don't know if it was Heritage, I'm sorry, it was the Federalist Society, or an individual who was
Oh,
headed.
yes, that's the one that did
Yes.
the judiciary, right?
Yeah. But
Federalist.
anyways, I mean, they're talking big money. It's not anything that we on the left,
Can even come close to it.
as we're
We-
deemed, you know.
As in the small party D.
Yeah, I just, and there's a lot of information out there. We hope that you would go out and do research on it. There's a PBS trailer. I don't know if we have time to squeeze that in right now. We
got
can try to
about
do
4
that.
minutes.
Yeah, it was made 4 years ago, but this is the trailer for it. You'll be able to find it on YouTube.
You know, the number one rule of political or watchdog reporting is follow the money.
John Adams here. I covered the legislature for the Great Falls Tribune.
A source of mine had come across something that I might be interested in.
Voters in your district had never seen something.
No, this was a whole new political attack.
They send out all these mailings. They don't care if they lie.
Nobody knows who they are. They call them dark money groups, and that's exactly what they are.
Corporation
Funnels money to a dark money group. They send out postcards attacking the opponent. When that candidate gets elected, they support the agenda of the corporation.
I don't know how to fight them. I can't pick up the phone and say, hey, what's your interest in candidate X? Because I don't know who they are.
And it's not just Montana.
Campaign finance is the gateway to every other issue that you might care about.
Americans are barraged by these political advertisements that are funded by who knows whom. We don't even know if they're domestic.
Politics is just child's play to business. They know how to manipulate the system.
You can buy the politicians, you can buy the judges.
When I first got to the FEC, I thought that we would work together on issues such as disclosure.
If A fails 3-3, Ocean fails 3-3, that fails 3-3.
The FEC will not enforce the law.
New allegations in court against a leading legislator.
What's at stake is whether or not Art Whittick broke Montana campaign finance laws.
Do we care enough to demand that politicians comply with our campaign laws?
The bottom line is, did Whittick know that he was receiving all of these services?
I'm going to call it like I see it. This man cheated.
The people who want to keep dark money have a real problem. The public does not agree with them.
They want a government that works for them. It doesn't work for special interests, doesn't work for political parties, it works for them.
This is scary stuff, but I think this is the proving ground now for the American experiment.
Yeah, so we hope that you could go.
Look that up on YouTube?
Yeah, you can look it up on YouTube. It's called Dark Money, and there was a full documentary on it. It's 4 years old, but, you know, we're still facing the problem.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've been facing this problem for what, 12
Yeah.
years? No? Since Citizens
Citizens
United
United,
opened
yeah.
the floodgate for this.
Right.
And folks, and yes, just think about every single one of these things that comes. Yes, we know this came from the AFL-CIO because they say it loud and proud, and they lead you right to it. But the other ones, you get this name of an organization and you Google it on the web and you won't find very much about that corporation out there. Because I've tried a couple of times over the years.
Right.
And
They do a good job of hiding it. And especially those ads you see, like, I don't know, my wife and I like to watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy.
Oh,
and
it's a good time to be
that's
throwing
when
an ad, yes.
those when they start showing those ads. And we were watching baseball games too, so we were seeing ads from other parts of the country too. But they seemed like they were the same ad, you know, about violent crime, you know. They always talk about crime in the streets.
Okay.
And they're trying to make you fearful. But when do they start talking about crime in the suites? You know,
they're never going to talk about crime in the suites because
right. That's what we're, you know.
Because they need to distract us away.
Right, exactly. They want to make you fearful. So don't be afraid. You know, don't be afraid. I think we just have to use our heads, and we gave you the endorsements. I think go out there and vote. And as Timothy Snyder says, you know, the first thing is don't concede in advance in the 20 lessons from the 20th century.
Correct.
Go out there. It's easier to stop these forces now than if we wait until they take total control. So stand up there, vote. Don't complain. Don't be discouraged. Just go out there and vote. Then complain.
Then complain.
And then
'Cause
vote
that
with
actually
your
gives you
feet.
the right to complain.
Get out in the street. Don't be sitting anymore. Be an advocate for yourself and your family and your children and your grandchildren.
Yep. And remember, the power does really rest with the people in the end. Thank you.
Power to the people.
There's power in the factory.